What's going on, guys? Welcome back into the channel. Brenden Schaeffer Fantasy Football coming at you with plans on this video to do a 2024 playoff best ball draft on Underdog Fantasy. The Mitten is the name of this contest, just a $5 entry, and it is a huge contest that runs for the NFL playoffs specifically. And now is a very interesting time to draft, as it's December 11th as I'm recording this. Interesting time to draft because there are several weeks remaining in the NFL season. And if you have a take or an opinion on one of the teams on the fringe that might sneak into the playoffs, it would be to your benefit to be drafting these Underdog Fantasy Playoff Best Ball leagues now rather than waiting until that playoff field gets crystallized. And you can maybe take advantage of some of these players from the teams that you're saying, yep, that team might not be in the playoff field now, but they're going to get there, in my opinion. You can take advantage of that in these drafts by drafting some of the star players from those teams, whether, for example, you think the Falcons are going to hop over the Buccaneers to get in the playoffs, and suddenly guys like Bijan Robinson, Drake London would be very valuable in these drafts. The Rams, another team that's really interesting after their big win over the Bills last week. Puka, Nacua, Cooper Kupp, Kyren Williams, even Matt Stafford. A lot of interesting names there. So I think this is an interesting time to draft these. We're going to make an effort to do it if my computer will cooperate here and my technology will cooperate. But want to quickly off the top let you know, and oh, by the way, before we get into that, I'm going to show you guys my Best Ball Mania team. I only drafted one Best Ball Mania team on Underdog this season. Kind of got away from me, and I normally like to do more than that for sure. But I just wanted to make sure at least to do one. I did it right before the season began, and I did advance to the playoffs. So I'll show you that team, and you can let me know if I'm drawing dead or if I've got a chance to maybe advance and make a run at this thing, despite a couple of injuries on my team. But want to real quickly say I'm proud to be partnering with Underdog Fantasy, my favorite place to play fantasy games. And although we're going to be talking about best ball in this video, you should also check out their Pick'em game. Easy to play. Just pick 2 to 8 stats of your favorite players and choose whether they will go higher or lower. It really is that easy. And if it sounds like fun, sign up with promo code BSHAFE. It's right there on your screen to claim your free pick and first-time deposit offer up to $1,000 in bonus cash. Must be 18 or older and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Concerned with your play, call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ncpgambling.org. Okay, let's go ahead and get into, if I can pull this up on Underdog. I want to show you guys my best ball team if I can here. If it'll let me. Give me 1 second. Okay, here we go. Best Ball Mania qualifiers. I only played one roster, one draft. It's a $25 entry, and I managed second place in my league. So the way these Best Ball Mania works, and I'm going to try to do a lot more of these videos next summer and maybe save back a little bit of a bankroll to get involved in more of the Best Ball Mania stuff because it is really a fun tournament. Second place in a 12-team division. You draft a regular 12-team league, but it's best ball, so unlike regular fantasy, for those not too familiar with the concept, you don't have to set your lineup throughout the season. You also don't make waiver claims. Anything like that. It's best ball. Your players are your players, and it automatically gives you the top-scoring players from each position group every single week and tallies up the season, and you're hoping to be in the top 2 to advance into the playoffs for the Best Ball Mania 5, the 5th year of them doing this. So I was second, as you can see here. Not an overwhelmingly great team. 1,761 points. There are a lot of folks that scored higher than I did. This is a contest with over 600,000 entries, and now they're whittled down to about 112,000 remaining. Let's take a look at this team, though. Let me know in the comments what you think, if I've got a shot this week. Basically, the way it works is you're put into a new pod of, I believe, 13 teams, so I'll have 12 opponents, and I've got to finish first in the pod this week to stay alive. And if you do, then you really start talking about being able to make some return on your $25 investment if you can even advance one additional week. And then beyond that, if you can make it into the final round, you're really talking about hitting big. So let's take a look at this team. A lot of times when you invest early on quarterback, you don't do it twice. But I decided the value was too good for me in this draft back in August not to. I went Lamar and Joe Burrow as my only 2 quarterbacks. Sometimes in best ball, in the site on Underdog, you'll maybe see teams with 3 quarterbacks. I figured because I had 2 pretty elite ones, I would just stick with the 2. And I feel pretty good about that choice at this point. Both those guys are still locked and loaded, and hopefully one of them goes nuclear here in Week 15 to help my team. Running back wise, it could have been a lot worse. I really felt like prioritizing the wide receiver position more so than the running back position, and despite that, I still feel like I managed at least one diamond in the rough with Tyrone Tracy, as you see there, was my 5th running back picked. But Jonathan Taylor did not end up being a good pick. I'd have to go back to the draft board and see, like how upset should I be about that pick. I wonder if I can just access that draft board and see if I can find a way to get it on the screen here. Just give me a second. I'm working with this technology. All right, so I figured out a way to pull it up here, and it's a little bit clunky because I don't have it perfectly formatted. But just to give you an idea, I'm the green dog logo here, B. Schaeffer 12. So this is my team. I was saying with Jonathan Taylor, I was wondering maybe if I should have went a different direction. Like, I'd feel a lot better with Devon Achane right now. Would feel I'd feel a lot better with Saquon Barkley. I mean, that is immediately, you look at that and go, Brenden, you may have cost yourself a legitimate chance with that errant pick at 2.9 going Jonathan Taylor over Barkley, because Barkley, along with Jamar Chase, basically those two set the record for the highest advance rate. If you had Jamar on your team, I think you had like a 50% advance rate, and Saquon Barkley like a 48%. Combined, it was like an 86% chance that if you had both those guys, you're advancing to the playoffs. Now, I did advance, and I do have Jamar Chase, and he is stacked with Joe Burrow, who I got way later in the 8th round. So that was where I just looked at the value and said, Joe Burrow's still sitting here. I have Jamar, the stack. It's not forced. It's just, it fell to me. I'm taking it, is kind of how I felt about that. But my gosh, I should have never pulled up this draft board because I wouldn't have remembered that I had a chance to draft Saquon. I had the look for a Jamar Saquon start, and Kyren fell to me in the 3rd round, and I didn't take it. I took Jonathan Taylor. So I'm tilting right now. I'm remembering, because I didn't remember this draft. I ran it, and then that was that from back in August. But I basically loaded up, got a top wide receiver with Jamar. He was the right pick in the 1st round, the highest advance rate, obviously, of 1st-round picks. And then blew it in the 2nd round, but my plan was get a couple of locked and loaded running backs so that when the wide receiver value exists in the later rounds, you can attack it. And I even at tight end, again, Mark Andrews has not been fantastic, but to stack him with Lamar, I felt like made a lot of sense in round 4 or 5. I didn't overpay, didn't force the stack necessarily. And now look, Andrews, in best ball, you just need the guy to be big that week, and his point total is going to count for your team. And now we're in the playoffs, so that stack, if they happen to go nuclear the next few weeks, maybe that ends up being really productive. I've got the Jamar stack with Burrow, or I've got the Lamar stack with Andrews. And actually scrolling on down, we're monitoring the practice reports of Rashad Bateman here because he was drafted in the 15th round for me and has been known to catch a deep ball or two. So if he ends up playing, that's a double stack opportunity there with Lamar Jackson. So we'll see what ends up happening there. But yeah, I did not know about the Jonathan Taylor thing. So Jonathan Taylor, Kyren Williams, those are my running back horses that we're riding. But then we hit Ladd McConkey, JSN, Smith and Jigba was a great pick. Shaheed was a really solid pick until he got hurt. Leggett, we'll see. I mean, he's still, at this point when you're in the later rounds, you just want to have guys that are healthy, active, and starting and playing and getting snaps and getting targets. Xavier Leggett is that with a renewed Bryce Young, so we like having him. Jacoby Myers has been a target hog. Got him in the 11th round. Ty Chandler was a miss as we're kind of going through this best ball. Remember, you drafted this in August. You don't get to know what happens thereafter, so you're just trying to guess a little bit. Thought Ty Chandler was going to be the number 2 for Minnesota. He's just been a dud. He hasn't done anything, and they brought in Cam Akers. Algier would have been certainly a better pick if I was running back needy at that spot. Jalen Wright, man, Charbonnet would have been, and I would have taken Charbonnet over Chandler. And he's maybe now getting some opportunity with Ken Walker hurt. Jalen Wright, I probably was tempted by. I remember really liking him, and he hasn't done much. But then there was a big break before you get to guys like Ray Davis. Here was the name, though, Chuba Hubbard, Bucky Irving. This was around where, boy, I was definitely into Bucky Irving. I was probably praying he would drop to me where I took Jaleel McLaughlin here. But these are the razor-thin margins where if you slide a Bucky here and maybe I think forward-thinking and take Chuba Hubbard earlier, suddenly this would be a best ball team that would absolutely be in play, I think, for some big-time prize money. I mean, Tyrone Tracy, obviously a great pick in the 17th round. 18th round, Dulcich was a dud. Didn't end up doing anything. Probably would have been happy to I mean, even Kendre Miller would have been a better pick just to have another dart there. But I was a little bit worried about tight end because I had drafted Andrews, and then I had drafted TJ Hawkinson in the 13th round, who now, if you're able to survive a pick for a guy that's injured to begin the season, and now you have him where he's potentially at his height, like Hawkinson's a great tight end to have. I think this team's not completely dead. It's not going to win Best Ball Mania, but it could advance. I mean, it could get through a week here if like Ladd McConkey practices and plays, and JSN keeps doing what he's doing. And, we're going to need Jonathan Taylor, though. That's the thing that really kills you. But what's funny about this is, like, undoubtedly the wrong pick to go Taylor over Saquon. What if Taylor just happens to fall in the end zone a couple of times this week and Barkley, gets injured or something happens? Suddenly the best ball world turns on its head, right? So it's not a dead team, in my opinion. It's just probably not going to win because Roman Wilson was a dud. You got Ty Chandler a dud. I said injuries. I really haven't had injuries on this team. On my DraftKings list, I had a number of injuries on my best ball over there. Guys like Rashee Rice. But in this format, I, knock on wood, have stayed moderately healthy. And now we're just hoping to be able to, just find a way, find an in to be able to advance and keep the train rolling. So we'll see. That was the Best Ball Mania, though. I'll update you guys in a video next week if it's even remotely close to my team making it to the next round. But we're just looking for two of Taylor, Kyren, Jaleel McLaughlin, and Tracy to have big weeks. And McLaughlin's probably a long shot, but he did lead the team in rushing last week for Denver. So you'll start 2 running backs. I think it's 3 wide receivers and a flex. So we're looking at Chase, McConkey, Smith and Jigba, Leggett, Jacoby Myers, and Bateman. Those 6 to try to get us probably 4 elite scores, so that one of them could be the flex, or we could get lucky and have both Andrews and Hawkinson hit, perhaps, and then just one of the quarterbacks. Like, it's not the best team in the world, but I think it's got to look. Let me know what you think about it, and let me know if you've got any Best Ball Mania teams out there still kicking around that you're hoping can end up maybe making some noise this week. Kind of exciting there. All right, let's see if the technology will allow for me to try to get this rolling. Gonna draft the playoff Best Ball League and show you guys what that's all about. All right, it looks like we are cleared for takeoff here, and we're gonna have the 4th draft pick. Try to adjust the screen a little bit to see if I can't get at least the top of my head seen here on the names and everything. It's a work in progress, the technology that I do in these videos. But appreciate you guys for following along with the channel. Did a lot of stuff during draft season. Will next year as well. But we'll try to mix in some other content throughout the real season next year. This just was a tough year to be able to really get the channel off the ground. But we're going to continue to do more and more each year is the plan. Okay, so let's talk about playoff best ball here. We're the 4th pick. That kind of stinks. Basically, the way that a lot of people describe for you to really have a chance to try and win this thing, you don't want to be too spread thin in terms of players from a bunch of different teams, because you basically want to pick who are the teams that I think could advance to the championship rounds in the Super Bowl and try to have a lot of players from those teams. You also want to not have too many players with a bye. Like the Lions and Chiefs right now are lined up to have byes in their respective leagues because the first round is the wild card round of the NFL playoffs. And if your team is full of Lions and nobody plays that weekend for the Lions, you're kind of burned out there. But the Lions are very likely to advance to the Super Bowl. So you have to sort of balance it out here. The Bills would be a team that you would love to stack and attack with that in mind. Look, I'd love to have a lot of Lions as well. And if you did draft Lions, you'd be looking for probably those Lions to end up struggling during the latter portion of this season in order to maybe get them out of the bye and into the first round. I've done a couple of these drafts already where I've taken Lions. I'm going to go a little bit of a different route here. Let's dive in with a Derrick Henry pick. Not going to be able to stack him with Lamar Jackson, unfortunately. But I'm going to make it my goal to take an AFC team and an NFC team in this draft and really hit hard those two aspects of it and see if I can't maybe get lucky and pick the Super Bowl matchup. Lamar damn near did fall to me, though. That one hurts. That one does sting a little bit. Okay, so we're back on the clock. We have to sort of figure out, and we've already invested a little bit in the Baltimore side of things. So let's go ahead and look on, here's what we're going to do. Let's take Jalen Hurts The Eagles looked very dominant against the Ravens in that recent game. The Eagles could have a lane into the Super Bowl if the Lions get upset or something like that. The Eagles at their best can be dominant on both sides of the ball. So let's go ahead and lock in a quarterback. It's an NFC quarterback. It's not the NFC team that I really want to load up on, though. I want to take a little bit of a risk. That was a pick where we're like, let's just make sure we get a quarterback out of the way, and then we're going to try to get a little bit creative from there. But remember, we're targeting Ravens, and I was looking down the board at Zay Flowers, hoping that I can pick him up in continuing this draft. We got one more pick to go. Hopefully Flowers is the name that we're able to get. If not, already we're having to pivot a little bit, but I like Kelsey as well as the name at this stage. Okay, so we're going to take Flowers. We don't have Lamar, but we have his two biggest weapons, Flowers and Derrick Henry. So we're already feeling pretty good about that. We'll be hoping to grab maybe an Andrews or a Bateman later on. And then we're thinking at the end, maybe someone like C.J. Stroud, an AFC quarterback, maybe even a Justin Herbert that could be available with like our last pick that could just give us a quarterback on the AFC side. But clearly we're either going in on Philly, which is hard to do because A.J. Brown is the top target there, and Saquon's already been off the board. So this is not ideal to have my quarterback, and I'm not probably going to be able to stack him, but it may be the reason that it's going to be a little bit interesting, but I might hit the Rams very heavily after this because I like that Rams team. Another way you could go, honestly, though, is the 49ers. If you kind of look at the 49ers and their remaining schedule, could the 49ers be a team that sneaks into the playoffs? And they have, they do have the Lions remaining. Let's go ahead and in our head, we're going to be going Rams when it comes to these, some of these picks. But on this one, we may not even have to mess with it. Let's just get Devontae Smith because he's here. Let's just get Devontae Smith because that gives us a stack with our quarterback. So at that point, you're really rooting for a Ravens-Philly Super Bowl. Because, again, this is best ball. You're trying to advance with each round. If you have a team that has a bunch of players in the Super Bowl matchup, you end up picking up best ball points. Whereas people that, if you draft a bunch of Chiefs and Lions and those guys get upset, you don't get any points in that round where those players aren't active. So right now, we're actually doing a nice job. I don't love Devontae Smith necessarily, but it just takes a playoff run where he's on the same page with Jalen Hurts, and they're able to go off on it. So because he was there at the top of the ADP and we were a little bit panicked, that was probably the way to go with it. Now we're looking ahead a little bit. Let's see where we're at. Obviously, Andrews would be the one we'd want to see drop here, but we have to think ahead in case that does not happen. By the way this sets up, you have to have a running back earn you points each week, and then I think it's a couple of flex spots as well as a wide receiver spot. Let me see if I can get a breakdown here of the lineup. Yeah, one flex, one wide receiver / tight end, one running back, and a quarterback that start for you, and then everything else is a bench spot. We're going Andrews. It feels a little bit yucky to go naked because we do not have the AFC quarterback for Andrews, but we've got all the other Ravens. So we're looking for the Ravens to find their stride when it comes to the playoffs and hope that they get some good matchups, that they put up some big offensive numbers. And, you know, if it's one of those deals where if Hurts and the Ravens are playing in the Super Bowl, we've got a really great in at this point. We do want to find an AFC quarterback, and we also, again, I'm considering hedging my bets because when you think about the Philly Eagles that remain, you're talking about backup running backs, third stringers, even the tight end situation. Goddard's been banged up, so that's not ideal. Bateman going isn't the best for our stack situation, but we've got enough Ravens already that we feel okay about that. Now's where we might scroll down a little bit and try to go off board somewhat, looking for an AFC situation. But here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go way off board if I can and draft Puka Nacua. Because my bet is, look, if it's not going to be the Eagles, we're going to go in on the Rams. And so I'm going to try to draft at least one flyer from that team, if not try to really stack it up. It's going to be hard to stack it up because we've only got so many rounds remaining, and we did commit already to an NFC quarterback. We also want to be wary of the running back situation, and I think we saw Kyren go off the board, if I'm not mistaken. And no, he's still out there. So we're just probably taking Kyren Williams here because we're making our bet that the Rams are going to shock the world and they're going to make the playoffs. And look, if they don't, this team's probably dead. right? Unless Philly and Baltimore go nuts. But if they do, we're in a really good situation. Baltimore's not making the bye. They're not going to be the number 1 seed, so we know we're going to get Derrick Henry points in the first round. So we're not worried about, whether we can even advance out of round 1. That's going to be relatively safe. We've got 3 picks left. Quarterback-wise, you could make a consideration toward a Matt Stafford if you're really stacking up those Rams. I'm trying to think on the fly of what other in the AFC you could look Isaiah Likely if you really wanted to get silly and just go all in on the Ravens and say, hey, if the Ravens don't advance, we're dead. Our team's dead. But if they do, you're going to be hard-pressed to find many other teams that have more Ravens than us. Like, that is a strategy you could certainly take. Or you could say, hey, what if the Ravens dud, but we're just trying to get out of round 1? There goes Likely. I think this guy's got Lamar, and so that's why he's stacking it up that way. McConkey is interesting to me as well. I have mentioned, though, wanting an AFC quarterback. I'm going to take C.J. Stroud, even though I don't. You know what? Man. Let's take Russ, if we can click it fast enough. Yeah, we're going to take Russ because the more I thought about it, I'm like, do I trust the Texans? They are going to be getting a home game. That's the weird thing about it is they are going to be getting a home game. And so you can make a case that there was a higher upside for that. But the Joe Mixon is so big there for them that it doesn't maybe end up being as productive to draft Stroud. But the Steelers just keep surprising people and winning where you think they shouldn't. And so that's what we ended up going with. We ended up going with our AFC quarterback of Russell Wilson. Just to get some points. Obviously, if the Ravens lose, we're probably dead. But I just wanted to have an AFC quarterback to be able to kind of piggyback off of. We've got 2 running backs. We know Derrick Henry's going to be playing in each round. If Cooper Kupp hasn't been drafted, and he hasn't, we're going to take him. We're really just going to go all in on this idea that if the Rams make a surprise run, and we're coming off the week where they beat the Bills, so we just saw what their offense can do. If the Rams make a surprise run, like basically we're going Baltimore, we're going Philly, we're going Rams. We want those teams to do well. And if they do, we really feel good about this team. If the Rams don't even make the playoffs, we're probably dead, although we went in on enough Eagles to potentially, if the Ravens also advance pretty deep, be able to get something going. Our last pick, now you're just really thinking about how far in do we want to go on this concept, right, of drafting players that may not even be in the NFL playoffs. Or do we want to, take another flyer on a quarterback just in case? It's probably best to go even deeper into what we've done so far and take somebody from an Eagles or a Rams or a Baltimore. And like guys like Jamar Chase are on here, but his Bengals aren't making the playoffs, so that's why he's listed so low. You could stack Jalen Warren with Russell Wilson. You could stack Pat Freiermuth. You don't need another tight end or anything like that. You could stack Grant Calcaterra. Goddard's going to be healthy by the time it comes around, though. We're running out of time here. Oh, boy. We're gonna auto pick. I think we missed it. Nope, we got him, JSN. I just was clicking at the end, and again, this was not great preparation. Could have gone Matt Stafford. Like, I probably should have starred him just in case. But instead, we grabbed a guy that is going to be in the playoffs, we think. And it was probably minus EV, I'll tell you right now. And look, I'm no expert at this, but I enjoy these types of drafts, and I enjoy making the videos, so that's why we're doing it. But talking through it as we're kind of learning through, and it's easy to learn, too, at $5 a pop. It's not like it's the end of the world. Take a look at some of our teams here. My first 2 teams that I drafted, I wasn't too thrilled with, but just kind of learning the ropes a little bit. We go Hurts and Russell Wilson. This was today's draft. Try to bring this onto the screen a little bit more prominently for you guys. Let's see here. You'll see it on the right side of the screen there. The Pittsburgh thing is like it's a naked quarterback. We don't have a stack with it. Calcaterra would have been interesting, but by the time the playoffs arrive, are we going to get Goddard back? Probably would have been wise to do it because, again, we've got a naked JSN. But if it's one of those things where you just are trying to get, I do think more so than most people who are experts at this will tell you, I would like to just make sure to advance out of the first round. Like, give myself the best chance to advance out of my pod and go from there. And I think a guy like JSN in the first round, Lad McConkey would have been another really interesting case there. Probably should have gone McConkey, and I'd have to go back and look and see if he was even still available, or if he was drafted right before the end there, because he was a name I was kind of looking at. Just a guy that is in the AFC that if I'm wrong on Baltimore, I'll at least have another, elite player. Yeah, McConkey was not selected. Jaden Daniels was not selected, and that's a team that's probably making the playoffs too. So kind of crazy there, but I end up getting Derrick Henry. I end up getting Zay Flowers. I end up getting Mark Andrews. We're all in on Baltimore, right? Okay, makes sense. Kyren Williams, Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp. If the Rams make a surprise run, I've got a lot of Rams. Probably should have gone Stafford at the end. It would have been a third quarterback. Maybe felt a little bit like I wasn't going to get the help I needed to get out of round one if I was going Stafford over the JSN pick that I had. But the reason I say it's probably minus EV to pick JSN is like the Rams are going to have to take a playoff spot from somebody. And if the Niners win that division and the Rams are the wild card, then that means Seattle would end up missing out on the playoffs. But I think that it's the Niners that are going to miss. Just a quick glance at their schedule. That's where I was like making that. I was hedging the bet and saying that's what's going to come down. And so you're talking about the wild cards being Minnesota, Green Bay, and then hopefully the Rams, or the Rams are going to find a way to win the division. And obviously you do have Washington. So it would have made very little sense for me to take a guy like McLaurin or Jaden Daniels if I'm going with all these Rams. And that was a similar vein with the Smith and Jigba pick, because one of Washington, Seattle Rams is not making the playoffs, and honestly, probably two of them are not making the playoffs, potentially. So that's kind of the fun of best ball playoffs. I probably would normally like a third running back. If I'm only going two quarterbacks, a third running back would be good. But I trust, basically, I'm saying Derrick Henry is going to be the guy. And I know he's going to play in the first round because he is not attached to a team that's going to get the bye. So could have gone better, for sure. But these rooms are a lot of fun to draft in. And if you're interested in doing it, again, it is promo code BSHAFE. It's right there on your screen. You get a first-time deposit offer up to $1,000 in bonus cash. And it'll be a lot of fun to be doing not only the Pick'em Champions game, but also this playoff best ball stuff. I'm going to try to do more of these drafts. And let me know if you want more of these videos, if you think that'd be interesting on the channel. But appreciate you guys for watching, for indulging me, and for drafting along with me. We'll talk to you next time on the channel. Peace.